Dwight Drummond tonight, nearly a year after her death. Protesters in Toronto march in memory of Regis Korchinsky Paquette.
This is the one-year anniversary of nothing being done.
Hundreds turn out to support her family as they push for changes to how police deal with calls involving people with mental health challenges. Plus,
my daughter, or our daughter, and my husband and I could be together for the first time, side by side, since last summer.
this is a very special long weekend for many families in Ontario as long-term care visits are allowed to resume. And the Leafs head down the 401, hoping to take the lead in their series against Montreal. There were some tense moments today during a solidarity rally for the family of Regis Korchinsky Paquette. She's the Black and Indigenous Toronto woman who died after falling from her High Park apartment balcony. That night, her family called police after a violent dispute. This week marks the one-year anniversary of her death, and her family says they're still looking for justice in the case. Chris Glover has more.
This is the one-year anniversary of nothing being done.
The outrage was palpable from the beginning.
Just stop killing us!
But it was peaceful at Queen's Park as supporters of Regis Korchinsky Paquette demanded the investigation into her death be reopened. On May 27, 2020, the 29-year-old fell from the 24th-story balcony of her apartment building while police were in her apartment responding to a wellness check.
We shouldn't have to be here today, though. Regis should be here today.
Victims of police violence like Mississauga's Chantal Krupka, shot last year by police, spoke out in anger.
I shouldn't be broken like this, all right? They have done us dirty.
Last August, the Special Investigations Unit cleared the officers who were there that day of any unlawful actions. One of the witness officers reported that Korchinsky Paquette was scaling the balconies, and the SIU director concluded she was alone on the balcony when she fell. But the family has since filed a public complaint with Ontario's civilian body that oversees policing.
We recognize that there is something that has gone horribly wrong on May 27, 2020.
The lawyer for the Korchinsky Paquette family alleges misconduct and says Regis's cell phone has never been returned to the family. And so they marched through the streets to demand more transparency.
Just to give you a sense of the fear within these communities, everyone here was told to wear a mask today, not just for COVID transmission, but also they said to prevent policing of this rally today. They said if anybody didn't wear a mask, they put everyone's safety in jeopardy.
On their way to Yonge Dundas Square, tensions overwhelmed. Police made at least one arrest, but that person was released.
One lady was rushed by about 8 police officers and bikes thrown down, and the aggression was out of this world.
The arrest was particularly triggering for people like Derek Francique, whose son Jamal was killed last year after an interaction with Peel police.
It was exactly what we don't want. We asked for a peaceful demonstration, which we were conducting, and the police are always manipulating the situation and making it look like it's the people that are making the problems.
So it's not clear why that person was arrested or released, but police say they could still be charged at a later date. And as for the demonstrators here at Yonge Dundas Square, they say that they will continue to push for justice and accountability for Regis Korchinsky Paquette. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
This weekend was a reunion of sorts for people with loved ones in long-term care homes. Outdoor visits were allowed starting Saturday for the first time in many months. Dahlia Ashley spoke to one family who had a Victoria Day they won't soon forget.
Isn't it good to see Kathleen? Yes. And to see me at the same time?
Anne Lamont is her husband's essential caregiver. She's been able to see Christopher James since October, but today was a special day for the entire family.
Our daughter and my husband and I could be together for the first time, side by side, since last summer.
Today is not only about making up for lost time, it's also about creating new memories.
Well, it's very special, you know, because when you get to this stage and you're dealing with somebody in long-term care, you know that it is a finite period. You don't know necessarily how long that's going to be.
The province relaxed visitation rules at long-term care beginning this past Saturday, allowing a maximum of 2 visitors at a time per resident. That's in addition to 2 essential caregivers. General visitors will still need to be actively screened upon arrival, but do not need to undergo a rapid antigen test as visits are outdoors. As of today, 97% of long-term care residents in Ontario and 55% of staff are fully vaccinated. Danielle Harrington is a staff member at the downtown long-term care facility. She says outdoor visits are important.
The residents are happier. They want to do things now because they know that their loved ones are there.
Now that the province has relaxed visitation rules and residents can have different family members visit, she adds,
that gives the caregiver a chance for a bit of reprieve as well.
Lamont is encouraging anyone to take a moment and go visit their loved ones, a moment she says you won't regret.
My husband doesn't really know where he is, but he knows we're special and he does respond to the stimulation that we give him one-on-one. Enjoy that time, and because you know that things are going to advance and it may not be so easy the next time.
Dahlia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
Durham police are investigating a massive car rally in Pickering yesterday. There were hundreds of cars and spectators gathered in the parking lot during the event near Brock Road in the 401. It went on for hours despite being against COVID-19 regulations. Police say one person was injured during a fight. Pickering's mayor telling CBC News the rally may have started in Toronto before making its way to his city.
Have these people, whoever they are, largely, I believe most of them, not from Pickering or Durham, to come into our communities with total disregard for public safety is unacceptable. And I just don't understand the mentality that's associated with that.
Some area residents say it took police too long to disperse the crowd. Durham police say some tickets were given out, but they couldn't say how many. A cleanup is on the way at One Toronto Beach after revelers left behind quite a mess over the weekend.
Right now it's mostly fireworks. Fireworks and like bottles and leftover plates and food containers. A lot of shoes.
Lots of plastic, more plastic than we would like to see on the beach.
This was the scene at Woodbine Beach earlier today. A number of people walked around picking up used fireworks and garbage. Hundreds reportedly gathered here last night to set off fireworks. Our Leafs and Habs are back at it again tonight for Game 3 of their first-round playoff series, all knotted at 1 game apiece after a convincing victory for the Leafs Saturday night. Leaf fans feeling excited, but it's a little different this year, with fans having to confine their excitement to their homes. Greg Ross has more.
Loose is Hall. Hall shooting, rebound, scores!
After a convincing 5-1 victory in Game 2, there's a bit of a playoff buzz in the Toronto air.
A 9-game playoff losing streak is over.
But things are still very different.
It's been a little bit unfortunate that we haven't been able to gather with friends and take in, the energy of the social gathering.
This couple has been watching on TV from their downtown condo. It's just the two of them, but they're not letting it dampen their spirits, especially when the Leafs score.
We're doing high fives together.
And it's Sandin scores! And the first playoff goal for Rasmus Sandin.
Others have been forced to scale back their celebrations, but not all because of the pandemic. This couple has a small baby.
His first Leaf playoffs, Oslo.
How do you feel about that, buddy? It goes down for 7 o'clock, so every time he celebrates, I'm like, don't wake him up, don't wake him up.
Here's Nylander scores!
While the experience may be different for fans, the players say on the ice, it's business as usual.
It's playoff hockey. You really can't give an inch out there. It's tight checking.
Kerfoot with an empty net, and he won't miss.
Tonight, the series shifts to Montreal for Game 3. There won't be fans in the building there either, but the Leafs are still expecting the Canadiens to have an edge on home ice.
Even though there are no fans, they're still home, and they play well in this building. So we got to be ready for a big test tonight.
That's going to cause a commotion.
Fans are hoping if the Leafs play well enough, they might stick around long enough, so eventually people can gather to watch them play.
I totally wish that we were able to gather with friends. I'm hoping that they go far enough that eventually that'll be the case.
Tonight's game is the first of back-to-back games in Montreal on consecutive nights. They'll play Game 4 in Montreal tomorrow night before returning home here to Scotiabank Arena for Game 5 on Thursday. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
A little bit of a cool down today, Colin, but that sun certainly stayed strong.
Yeah, it was really a beautiful day for the holiday. You know, it was a bit more comfortable, too, not just the temperatures cooling down, but how the air mass felt. I'm going to illustrate that for you here in just a moment, though, because the heat and humidity coming back on force for Tuesday, all right? These are the daytime highs, and in fact, I'll show you the current temperatures because they're almost the same, very close. And you notice a lot of high teens and low 20s, but into southwestern Ontario, we're talking mid-20s. Well, there's another difference there as well, which is that the humidity not necessarily down in that area. We can take a look at the dew points and kind of the moisture content, and look at how low these are. And I'm telling you, when you're at 4 in Ottawa, 5 in Toronto, 2 for Oshawa, that's very, very low, but we've still got teens. You know, over the weekend, we were seeing numbers like 16 to 18 all the way across into eastern Ontario. So today, things dried down. You get that chance to have a little bit of a break, and then tomorrow, those dew points go up again. And just kind of showing you to give you an idea, when we're down here in these single digits, especially, it feels very, very dry, but you start to see those teens, and it's not just humid, it's muggy, and there is a discomfort level there as well. That's why there is a special weather statement. City of Toronto not actually included in this, but it's going to be hot and humid as well. Just letting everyone know those temperatures are going to spike back up. But this time, unlike last week, it's kind of one day only, and then we get into a transition on Wednesday and things cool back down again. Not a lot of activity tonight, a little bit bubbling up into Michigan. Some of these, they'll be winding down, but a few of the sprinkles could make their way across the international border into the evening hours. Otherwise, should be drier. Into tomorrow morning, though, we get into things becoming more unstable with that buoyant air. So by afternoon, we start to see things bubbling up, some isolated showers or thunderstorms, not just kind of north of the GTA, but into eastern Ontario. That risk is going to be there as well. It carries on tomorrow night into Wednesday morning, and then Wednesday we'll have a frontal boundary going through, and it's going to be more widespread, where we have not only showers, but some thunderstorms coming through too. So some areas locally will get some heavier downpours. Then we'll clear out and cool down behind that. So the winds will be kicking up tomorrow, coming out of the south to southwest. You'll see them a bit stronger, probably not quite records here, but very close to records with a high of 31 into Windsor. Also probably just under, but close to records. Toronto, we're headed up to 30 degrees again tomorrow, feeling like 35. And into the nation's capital, same thing. Some isolated storms possible in the afternoon, high 20s, feeling like the 30s. A little cooler, Kingston 25, because of that breeze coming in off the lake. Then Wednesday, we transition with a little more active weather. And then look at this, cooling back down. And guess what, Dwight? Those dew points going back down, so it's going to feel drier by then as well.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
This weather update is brought to you by Train. For a limited time, take advantage of 36 equal payments and 0% financing. It's hard to stop a train.
The mayor of Leamington, Ontario, is petitioning the federal government to do something about illegal cannabis operations popping up in the county.
If you look at the number of raids that the police have done, the OPP have done in cooperation with some other police forces as well, there's been quite a number where, say, 2 years ago, it was unheard of that there were raids, and then, you know, they're bringing in millions of dollars worth of cash and finished product, machinery, and raw products.
She's calling for the federal government to reform licensing and oversight of cannabis production, adding that provinces and municipalities should have the power to shut down illegal grow-ops if necessary. Since last fall, the OPP has busted numerous operations in Leamington and Kingsville. They've confiscated more than 100,000 plants. Provincial police estimate the value being in excess of $100 million. The Leamington mayor's petition needs 500 signatures before it can be presented to the House of Commons. The Gaza ceasefire continues to hold after 4 days, but the truce hasn't been without incident. We'll head to Jerusalem after the break. Rallies against the government of Belarus were held in Ottawa and Toronto today. The protests are over the arrest of a journalist who has been critical of the Belarusian government, an arrest that is now being condemned by countries around the world.
Canada can raise a stronger voice. We appreciate the
Statement of Minister Garneau, he released yesterday on Twitter, but we believe Canada can take a tougher stance. Canada can start implementing real financial, economical sanctions, and Canada can demand investigation into this case.
There were a handful of demonstrators on hand in both Ottawa and Toronto. Over the weekend, a flight from Greece to Lithuania was forced to land in the Belarusian capital of Minsk. Once on the ground, the journalist was taken away by police, apparently under orders of the Belarusian government. Western leaders are describing what happened as a hijacking and an act of state-sponsored terror. Chris Brown now with more on the fallout.
The man Belarus's regime essentially hijacked a commercial aircraft to get appeared in a video from his jail tonight, released on a pro-government social media site. In it, 26-year-old journalist and activist Roman Protasevich says he's well, and then appears to confess to organizing protests against Belarus's government, a crime that could keep him in jail for years. Protasevich's friends fear he could be tortured. Stepan Putila worked closely with him at the website Nechta.
Roman is recognized by Belarusian officials like the biggest enemy.
The astonishing chain of events began Sunday when Belarus's strongman ruler Alexander Lukashenko concocted a fake bomb threat to ensure a Ryanair flight to Lithuania with Protasevich on board had to divert and land in Belarus. Several European countries have already banned Belarus's airline Belavia amid a torrent of denunciations.
The scenario, as reported, is a shocking assault on civil aviation and an assault on international law.
Lithuanian investigators are zeroing in on 3 passengers who stayed behind in Minsk, which some say strongly suggests they were KGB agents, as Belarus still calls them.
It wasn't opportunistic, it was very deliberate, and it suggests now that Lukashenko is a threat not only to his own people, but to the citizens of other countries as well.
Were it not for Russian help, Lukashenko's regime might have collapsed by now, so any possible Russian connection will be scrutinized. On state TV, commentators are siding with Belarus. Protasevich and his group are not opposition. They're a project of Western intelligence, he said. In response to the condemnation, Belarusian authorities claim the threat to blow up the plane was emailed in by Hamas because of European support for Israel. Hamas says they have nothing to do with it. Chris Brown, CBC News, Moscow.
The Biden administration is sending one of its top officials to the Middle East. The U.S. is hoping to build on last week's ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. A truce on Friday ended 11 days of attacks, and while it's tenuous, some are trying to push for a long-term solution toward peace. Stephen D'Souza reports now from Jerusalem.
The cleanup continues in Gaza, even while many fear the ceasefire could collapse as easily as so many of the structures here.
We have to keep living. We have to rebuild it again and again until one day maybe we can be free.
While the overhead fighting between Israeli forces and Palestinian militants is on hold, tension and violence continues on the streets. Today, a Palestinian man stabbed 2 Israelis near the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood in occupied East Jerusalem. He was shot dead by police. Israeli police are cracking down on those they say were involved in clashes between Jewish Israelis and Israeli Arabs in recent weeks. Police say more than 200 people have been charged in the unrest. Media reports say the majority of those charged are Israeli Arabs. Today, White House Secretary of State Antony Blinken left for the region, beginning a 4-day trip with stops in Israel, Egypt, and Jordan. His challenge: keep the ceasefire in place and get aid money into Gaza without funding Hamas.
We obviously don't communicate directly with Hamas, given they're a terrorist organization. A number of countries in the region do. And so the Secretary's trip over the next couple of days will be focused on those objectives.
On Sunday, Blinken said the ultimate goal is still a 2-state solution.
I think both sides are reminded that we have to find a way to break this cycle, because if we don't, it will repeat itself at great cost and at great human suffering on all sides.
Egypt played a key role in brokering the ceasefire. Today, its foreign minister met with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. He stressed the need for a broad peace plan, including an independent Palestinian state. Though it's Hamas, not Abbas's Palestinian Authority, that controls the Gaza Strip. For ordinary people there, the hope is a ceasefire doesn't signal a return to the status quo, living under a blockade and the constant threat of a return to violence. The U.S. Secretary of State is coming with a promise to help the Palestinians, but he also has a message when he meets Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, that the U.S. will continue its, quote, ironclad commitment to Israeli security. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Jerusalem.
It was a family affair at the Billboard Music Awards in Los Angeles as Drake accepted his Artist of the Decade award.
Thank you to my beautiful family. And hey, wait. And to you, I want to dedicate this award to you.
That was cute. Drake accepted the award with his son Adonis. He was also named the top streaming songs artist, and last night he became the most decorated artist in Billboard history with 29 wins. It was a big night for another Toronto artist as well. On top of performing at the show, The Weeknd took home 10 awards, including Top Artist, Top 100 Song, and Top R&B Album for After Hours. And the wins top off a Canadian Music Week like no other. The pandemic has been exceptionally tough for our musicians. Performers say the lack of live shows and the move towards online has been challenging both professionally and psychologically. Jessica Ng spoke to music makers and shakers about how they're making sure the beat goes on.
That's the voice of Lexi Jalilian of the electric pop duo Featurette. She says the timing of the pandemic couldn't have been worse.
Go, 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 full force, national tour, and then bam, COVID hits and everything closes down. And you just feel like your dreams have been ripped away from you.
Her publicist, Samantha Pickard, says the lack of live shows during the pandemic isn't the worst of it. It's the
inability for the emerging artists and the artists that sort of started their careers maybe, 3 to 5 years ago to get to that next level of their actual music industry career and not being able to attend award shows and network.
Pickard says she has been holding virtual networking meetups for her artists. Musicians like Marilou Burnell, known as Machi, have shifted altogether. She now focuses on instructional music production videos. She says for artists, it's not just about making the shift to online.
People on Twitch or on YouTube have been there for years. So when you just arrive on those platforms, even if you have a very strong fan base that follows you, it's not the same.
Can you see what I see?
Adapting your style to the platform, like jazz musician Dan Julian. But with fewer live music venues and no physical audience, he says the hardest part is staying motivated.
Can you see what I see?
Not being able to go up to fans afterwards and say, hey, how did you like that? Do you have any feedback? And just getting to know their stories. I think that's so much part of the performance aspect is being able to connect with your crowd.
Jalilian says with time away from touring, she has been exploring her mental health and opening up about it.
Do you think the artistic growth and the things that you've gone through, the songs that you put together as a result of that, would have happened without the pandemic?
It really helped me to eventually open myself up, and something really beautiful came out of it.
Changing the sounds of Toronto for well beyond the pandemic.
To learn to be human too. One more time. To learn to be like someone like you.
Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
Enjoy the last of the long weekend. We will see you back here tomorrow. Thank you for joining us.